when I tell you I was half asleep when I get this Shams text because I was catching up on some sleep, and all I see is Detroit Pistons. So in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, they waived Malachi Flynn. Get the sleep out of my eyes, and I'm like, yo, what? Like, what just happened? So allegedly, because I'm going to say allegedly because there's no video evidence.
Right.
Isaiah Stewart punched Drew Eubanks. So my question to you, Zar, is what were your initial thoughts when you saw that Shams tweet and just like the firestorm just on social media of people kind of like saying that Isaiah Stewart has like this history of violence when he really doesn't? I mean, you could pick apart everything from the LeBron James fight. He got elbowed in the head first.
Yeah.
The Draymond Green thing, Draymond Green tried to say he was a punk. He freaking Isaiah Stewart grabbed him, let him know, like, hey, you're not going to be punking my ass around.
Right. Right.
Patrick Beverley this year, messing with him during shoot-arounds and elbowing him. Like, everything with Isaiah Stewart, he's never initiated anything. And, you know, Shams Charania is trying to say it was a play, like, this year, apparently. And I looked up the play, and Isaiah Stewart was nowhere near Drew Eubanks. It was a Killian Hayes fast break point, and this whole thing just doesn't like add up, in my opinion.
Yeah. So with this, as far as my initial reaction, I remember reading it and just being like, "Here we go." In terms of expecting like a social media, because that's the type of thing that like social media loves to run with, right? Like I remember the whole Bobby Portis Mirotic thing in Chicago. That's the type of thing that people really cling on to. I have a couple of things on this. One, first and foremost, I don't think fights in sports are ever that serious where this needs to be talked about in a legal manner. It needs to be talked about in terms of how it reflects on a team or on an individual. At the end of the day, this is competition. Competition gets really intense. And even though Isaiah wasn't playing, he still is on a basketball team that gets kind of the center of a lot of people's jokes. Like they're the butt of a lot of people's jokes. So a lot of these guys do have chips on their shoulders. They can't show it because of their record. And they're all very aware of the record, how people kind of view them. I don't think fights in the heat of competition, I know it's before the game, but it still is technically during competition. I really don't think it's that serious. I mean, I went to my first Red Wings game like a month ago, and a lot of people thought it was funny because I made some jokes about, you know, knowing too much about hockey and stuff. But a lot of people were waiting for a fight in a hockey game, and that's totally normal. That's completely, everybody goes there and like, oh, I hope we get to see a fight today. But it happens in a basketball context, and it's like needs some social commentary behind it. And I'm always just so confused about the discourse when it comes to fighting in basketball. Now, I'm not saying I encourage fighting or I encourage violence or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying I don't think it needs to be this big thing where we turn it into a national discussion about, oh God, this player's going to get suspended this many games and they're out of control and this and that. It's sports, man. If anybody has ever played sports on any level, you totally know that you get your emotions are heightened. You're like, even if you're not playing, your emotions are heightened. And on the NBA level, people talk about you every day. People probably DM you every day. People have accounts dedicated to you, like all those Muse accounts, right? Like, there's so many people that make you the center of attention every single day. There's so many things that go into sports rather than just, oh, this guy walked up to this guy, just started swinging on him. You know, I really think that discourse is a little irresponsible, and it's always been really confusing to me because I feel like we have combat sports. We have the WWE, which imitates like combat, right? Like,
Yeah.
We are a country and a society that really just loves a fight. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, and like half the country was like, hell yeah. Then half the country was kind of giving the same reaction to this, where they're like, oh, that's just out of control, blah, blah, blah. Like, America loves fights, man. Like, that's like kind of the thing. Like, they love conflict, they love debate. That's why it's a show like First Take is a huge thing, because we love conflict.
What was really weird about the reporting is it contradicts itself. So the Sun say it was unprovoked. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it was unprovoked. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, So that means Stu and the Pistons got off the bus, dropped his bags, and was looking for a fight. It doesn't really seem like his character.
No.
Then they say they were chest to chest. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he said something disrespectful. He said something that crossed the line. And again, they say, unprovoked. Drew Eubanks didn't do anything. Then he said he sucker punched him. And I'm thinking, how can you be chest to chest with somebody and sucker punch somebody when you have peripheral vision? I was just like, this isn't adding up. They said that we're going to get footage. We don't get footage. They get the police involved, which I think is hilarious, by the way, because what probably happened was they take Isaiah Stewart and they just put him in the back of a room with the security guards. He probably didn't go to jail, most likely, because if you get the police involved, they're probably going to get a call from the commissioner saying like, hey, just let it go. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
I just see a lot of people talking like really wild and irresponsibly with it, especially like I saw Kendrick Perkins, saying that, Isaiah Stewart has anger issues and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, like he doesn't have anger issues. That's just so irresponsible. And even the Sun saying like, it was unprovoked and the Pistons need to get him under control. It's just like, I just don't believe the reporting that came out from the Sun side, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really. I think Monty Williams had said that exact wordage, like it was irresponsible, releasing a statement like that that's so opinionated so soon by a team when there's no facts or footage available, I think is a little irresponsible. Shams is just doing his job when it comes to reporting. I don't blame him for anything like that. But when it comes to like the Suns kind of coming out and saying that, I think it's a little questionable. And I really have an issue when it comes to people talking about Stewart, because the way people talk about Isaiah Stewart, they talk about him like he is some loose cannon maniac who just goes around starting fights. When you look at any conflict he has been in his entire time in the NBA so far, I can go through them. I think the first one I remember was Giannis Antetokounmpo, his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
He was just playing physical. Giannis didn't like it. Giannis came up to him after the game, and that's what kind of got clipped. Okay, I don't really see where he was in the wrong there. You could even look at something like Markieff Morris that same year. It was Markieff who had a problem with Isaiah Stewart playing physical. Keyword playing physical. I don't know. And then, of course, the whole LeBron thing was initiated by LeBron, and I'm a fan of LeBron's. I've been a fan of LeBron's my whole life. I will say he did swing down and hit Stewart in the face. If you get punched in the face, you're going to have a reaction to getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And then, it's just like, and then we look at something like this, looking at the history of things, it's pretty, responsible to be like, okay, well, I feel like something had to have led to that exact moment where he felt the need to put his hands on him. But Isaiah Stewart is someone who I talked to a lot of Cruise players. I talked to some Pistons, like staff and players. I always hear one of the first few things I always hear is Isaiah Stewart's a leader. I always hear that he's a leader. I always hear that he's someone younger guys go to talk to on this team. Like I think Malcolm Castellan had said that earlier this year. When he was asked about, who's really like helped him with the process of becoming a two-way player. Players rave about Isaiah Stewart on this team, and they all kind of look to him for leadership. So for the media and for fans who kind of aren't as aware, to paint him in this light of loose cannon and, really just troubled or anger issues, whatever they're trying to say, I really feel is both irresponsible and just inaccurate, because from all accounts, and I've met Stewart, and he's genuinely like just a even-keeled, pretty cool guy. Like he's genuinely just like a good dude. So I really have an issue when people try to make it seem like he's I don't know, like I'm trying to think like of someone who I can even compare. Like they make him out to sound like I mentioned WWE earlier, like they make him out to sound like the Undertaker or something. Like it's like this guy is a real person who is actually really respected and admired by his peers, and his only real thing that gets caught in the national media is that he does. Can I swear? Am I able to swear?
Fuck yeah.
Okay. He doesn't take shit from people. Like that's really it. He doesn't seem to take shit from people. I didn't know that standing up for yourself really made you an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about like a lot of like the altercations. Like I remember when Blake was screwing with them. He was screwing with Sadiq.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Stewart, was sticking up for his teammate. I mean, you could go down the list of every altercation he's ever had.
Yeah.
And I think the one most recently outside of the Eubanks one was the Pat Beverly one this year.
Oh, yeah,
Pat Beverly was saying that, Stewart had people calling him saying he was looking for him like the day before. And I was just like, I highly doubt that. You're probably just trying to get clicks for Barstool Sports. Because personally, like, no disrespect, I've never really listened to Pat Bev's podcast. Like, I'm not trying to be like rude or anything, but
it's a good pod. I won't lie. It's definitely a good pod.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've listened to it. There's just so many. Like,
yeah,
I
that's
heard,
true.
I've heard Gilbert Arenas talk about like this whole situation, and like he was pretty disrespectful with it.
Well, Gilbert already kind of has it out for Stewart a little bit, so I don't know if he's the really best guy to talk about this situation.
Yeah, he basically said he was too dumb to read his post. He's like, you're not gonna tell someone that's dumb. I was like, dude, come on, stop. Really?
Yeah, that's really like stuff I have an issue with. Like, there's really no need for all of that because it's you're feeding into kind of stereotypes and just generalizations, and I'm really just not with that.
Yeah, I mean, I had the opportunity to go on a live stream, and I don't think I told anyone this. He's partnered with a company called like Rebel Moments or something like that, and I was just a spectator. I didn't ask any questions. I just listened in. And the amount of, I'm talking about like elementary kids, like little kids, like he had kids from Rochester, New York, coming on in that he sponsors. He's even got kids that he sponsors with the Jalen Rose Foundation. And like they were actually like asking him basketball questions. And I know the Pistons PA announcer,
John Mason.
Kevin.
Oh, Kev knows. Kev knows. Yeah.
Kev knows. He hosted the whole thing. Like, you could go and ask him. Like, he takes time with these kids, like these little kids, and he doesn't have to. He's a really good human being at the end of the day. Yeah. I've never met him on a personal level, but people that I've interviewed through this podcast, whether it's you, whether it's Corey, James, they all speak really high of his character. So when I see stuff like this and kind of like unprovoked, I was like, man, that does not sound like him. Like something disrespectful was definitely said.
For sure. Like it takes two to tango at the end of the day. Like the last thing I guess I'll leave with on Stewart was like, and you mentioned the kids. I remember I did this story about Ezekiel. If those who read it, it's Ezekiel he was going through some tough times. Essentially, you can read our story. I'll save the details, but Isaiah Stewart wasn't told to go and fist bump Ezekiel, who was just kind of able to sit courtside for some warm-ups. But he came up to Ezekiel and gave him a fist bump and talked to him for a couple of minutes. And that's one of my favorite like pictures I've ever taken was him fist bumping Ezekiel, because Ezekiel just looks starstruck. He's just Stu's just a good dude, and I know that with conflict and with fights comes discourse, and that's totally normal. But I just hate when things get ran with and people just start running with generalizations.
Yeah, like I said, I sat back, I observed. I didn't want to be one of those people that was just talking recklessly, because at the end of the day, the guy has a family. He's trying to support. He's trying to better himself. And like I said, I see national media pundits just say some really reckless, dumbass shit. Like the whole Inside NBA crew just sounded like a bunch of dumbasses. And
I actually haven't even said that. I haven't even seen that clip.
Oh, I think Brian Windhorst was probably worse than Kendrick Perkins. Just kind of talking like, oh yeah, he's had a history of violence. I was like, dude, shut up.
Yeah, really? It's just it gets really weird when discourse starts about stuff like this.
Yeah, I don't blame any of these NBA players not watching anything ESPN or Fox Sports related, because some of these guys just say some wild, crazy ass shit.